Well, more now on the detention of the BBC team by Colonel Gaddafi's forces. Patrick Butler is Vice President of the International Centre for Journalists in Washington. It trains journalists in the Middle East, and he joins me now. Patrick Butler, regarding the experience of this BBC team, is this the first case of its nature you've heard coming out of Libya during the recent troubles?
It's certainly the first case I've heard of foreign journalists being detained and beaten in this way. But the uprisings in the Middle East have been very dangerous for journalists in general, and we've seen incidents in Egypt and Yemen of journalists who have also been, either detained or beaten.
What about the experience of journalists in Libya in the past?
It's hard to say because there has been very little independent reporting from Libya in the past. Usually the biggest victims of these kinds of incidents are local journalists, not foreign correspondents. And in Libya, of course, there is very little independent media, and so we really haven't seen as many examples of this as we have in some other Arab countries where there is a little bit more freedom to report.
It's been very difficult for journalists from any organisation to get a clear picture of exactly what's happening in Libya at the moment. How much of that do you think is due to the nature of the fighting itself and also down to the Libyan government trying to stop journalists doing their jobs?
I think it's a matter of both. Definitely the conflict is much more violent than we've seen in any of the other Arab countries where this has happened. But a big part of it is the Libyan government's control of the media, which has always been much more of a factor than pretty much any other Middle Eastern country. Of course, the Libyan government tried to welcome journalists and take them on a little propaganda tour. But the kind of independent reporting that we need from Libya, now we're seeing what happens when journalists try to do that.
There isn't really anything journalists can do. I don't suppose there's much advice you can give journalists who are ordered by a government not to go to certain areas.
Well, journalists have to do their jobs, and each news organization and its journalists have to make these decisions. So, I certainly can't say whether, what media organization should do about getting reporting from these conflict situations. The irony, of course, is that this is going to be far more embarrassing for the Libyan government than if they just let the journalists do their jobs, not only because of the incident itself, but also because we now have reporting from inside a detention center about the conditions of detainees and the beatings and torture that we never would have had otherwise.
Patrick Butler in Washington, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thanks for